That's the culprit. That's the alternator. Again, it's interesting, these cars, like I said, I was trying to tell you is that the car just locked me out. It had the security light on. It wouldn't crank over or whatever. And the maintenance light had turned on before I shut it off. Once I shut it off, it didn't let me turn it back on. And for good reason. It kept not letting me turn it back on because the alternator was done. I took it to the auto parts store. That thing said, the guy said, you have absolutely no charge coming out of this thing. It's totally dead. So, and just before it went, what made me think it was a transmission problem was RPM. I start to roll, move forward after a light, and RPM just shot up. Zoom, 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 and I'm like, oh crap, I'm about to break down. So I pull over, check the fluids. I mean, you got maintenance light turns on, you pull over. Once I check the transmission fluid, because the transmission fluid has to be while it's running, I shut up the car to check the other fluids, which oil has to be when it's off. And, the radiator fluid, as you can tell right there, because the reservoir bottle's there. That and all the other stuff. So you start, going down. It wasn't a check engine light. It was a maintenance light, which this is the light I've never seen in this car turn on. And so it just warned me. But again, I had no start thereafter. We got it to redo a start when we look at a YouTube video that was from some dude that was showing that the security light turns on because of a bad ground. And sure enough, my brother went ahead and redid the ground on the security modules, and the ground, it was the positive, is the red one is what, negative, and the black one is positive. Positive ground leads to security modules, and more likely than not, the stupidity on Ford's part is that they paint the chassis before they put the ground on. And so what ends up happening is you have security modules that don't get grounded. And once he used some metallic cleaning brush to brush off the paint, it's like a scrubbing brush. He scraped it off, and then he put the ground on there. And sure enough, once that contact happened, that security light went off. So it was more than one problem, but the secondary problem, the main problem was the alternator, but the secondary problem was security light ground that concurrently had to be taken care of, because when the main alternator went, it caused triggered some sort of security code, whatever, and there's a lockout. And this is not the first time this Ford Fusion locked me out of my own car. Like in May, I think it was, one of the T's for the heater hose busted. Little plastic piece. I mean, the car is 2008, so 245,000 miles. And having plastic on the side of the car is nonsense anyway. But the plastic piece broke. Antifreeze leaked out the car. I didn't know it had leaked out the car. And once it ran out of antifreeze, it started to overheat. And the car automatically protected itself by shutting me down. Shut me down. It says, you can't go nowhere. So I was on the highway, put it in neutral, glided to the side of the road. It was a nasty glide too, by the way. A rough glide. No power on, and just gliding the car after doing about 65, 70 miles an hour. And glided it onto the side of the road, and it wouldn't start, and it rightfully wouldn't start, because when I looked over to the left-hand side, I saw the reservoir bottle was totally empty. Nothing was in there. So I called a couple friends, and they came over. I said, make sure you bring me at least 2 jugs of water. And we put the water in there, and Once I put the water, I was with my kids too. Once I put the water in there, it cooled the engine off. And then once I cooled the engine off, I was able to move it safely to the exit. I was in a service lane, and it was really bad. The traffic was really bad. I mean, in terms of flying, people were flying. It's supposed to be a 70-mile zone. People were going 85, 90. So with kids in a hot mess on the side of the road, I'm glad people brought me water. Friends from church brought me water, moved it up. When I put the water in and started the car up to move it up, that's when we could see all the gushing water out of the heater hose. But we had put enough water in it to cool it off, to move it up to a safer location. That was within a tenth of a mile, whatever, to get to the exit ramp. So moved it safe to the location. But what I'm trying to say is this: if you have a cutoff, these vehicles nowadays, especially Ford, have the ingenious mentality of, if something's seriously wrong with the car, it will shut you out, lock you out of your own car. Tips and some things you might want to consider if you're a do-it-yourselfer mechanic. And so if your RPM all of a sudden raced and your car just cut off thereafter, you probably need to backtrack. Not just looking at your PCM, but looking at first your electrical stages. You begin with the starter. You begin with the battery first. Is your battery good? Starter next, alternator next, and of course you go to your ignition systems, your ignition coils, whatever. But it's backtracking. Hope this helped for you guys who just don't understand. My car won't start. And again, there is a video out there. I'll probably find the link for it and put it on there, and on part of this video, so y'all could have, hey, look, there is a security issue with the security system where the ground is really bad, and my brother did fix it. So end of the day, about 12 hours later, mine is about $300. That's what you're talking about to fix an alternator. And unfortunately with the Ford Fusions, you gotta take out the radiator because of the compact nature, and take off the side, the wheel, to get your hands in there. And so it's just too compact to just be able to slide the alternator out. Hope this helps. Bye.